Perfect. Hello, everyone. I think everyone's filtering in slowly as we're starting. Perfect. Well, sweet. Well, welcome to our call today. We love having these calls, and I'm excited. I'm Jacob, your host here at XYPN Network. I'm in the marketing department, and we're excited today to have Pierre, Paul, and Rebecca with us. They're 3 XYPN members, and we're going to be talking all about marketing your firm today. And the real purpose of these calls is so you guys can learn and see that it is possible to, work in this environment, to work with younger people, to start your own firm. Like, it's not something that you have to go alone, and that there are hundreds of examples. There are over 600 XYPN members now that show that you can do this. So we're excited for you guys to be joining us. Glad to have you. And we're also excited for our panelists being here with us. So today's call is focused on marketing your firm. This love-hate relationship that we all have with marketing, that we love the idea of working with clients, but sometimes it's the how do we get people to find us and be excited to work with us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Rebecca, Paul, and Pierre have had moments of success as well as moments of learning on their journeys, and I'll let them talk about that as we get going. So this call is going to be 1 hour long for your information. We're going to try to get through as many questions as you can, and if you notice in the bottom corner or bottom center of your panels, you can see a Q&A area. Feel free to drop questions in there, and we'll try to get to some of those as well through this call. If you have other questions after you've been viewing this call, feel free to contact Stacy Unruh or her team. You can find their schedule to schedule a call on xyplanningnetwork.com/schedule. So that's how you can get a hold to continue asking more questions. So today's guests are Paul Zidlatsky. Pardon if I'm not saying them properly, correct me. Rebecca Connor and Pierre Emmanuel Jove. Did I say that right?
Yeah, close enough.
Perfect. Well, Pierre is the founder of Insura Wealth and focuses on young families, business owners. He lives in Florida, and you can find him on Twitter at Insura Wealth, INSURA Wealth. Rebecca has a master's in accounting and at one point headed the tax department at DFA before founding Seed Safe Financial. She likes to cut through the crap and focus on confidence, flexibility, and people taking control of their financial life. She's in Washington, and you can find her on Twitter at Seed Safer. And Paul, he worked for 13 years in the private wealth area and also with hedge funds. He founded Lake Road Advisors, and he focuses on charting people's paths and reducing stress. You can find him on Twitter as well at P. Zidlansky, and you can see his name underneath his name. So we'll jump into these questions. I'd love to ask each one of you. We'll start with Pierre. What was your beginning into the financial planning industry like, and what was it like marketing your firm?
So I started in the business probably about 6 years ago. I joined a team in Miami working for my father-in-law. So I came from the insurance brokerage side. And in June of 2016, I decided to leave Mass Mutual at the time and joined XYPN, and then started the process of launching my firm, which went into effect about November 2016. So just a little under 2 years. Went through ebb and flows in the first 6 months. And it wasn't until I really signed up with a service, Brewer Consulting, in April of 2017. And from then, using some of the techniques, it's been a complete blow up, which has been great.
It's always good to see it glow up. How about you, Paul?
Yeah.
So just really quickly, my background, I've been in the financial services industry my whole career, but got into the RIA financial planning space back in 2012 when I joined an RIA. We managed about $1 billion and was a financial planner there. Very quickly realized that it wasn't the place for me for many reasons, kind of the classic owner who doesn't want to give anything up and promise me the world, and decided to start my own firm back in January of 2016. Starting out from a marketing perspective, I will say that I really believed in the 1,000 Cups of Coffee. So there's a presentation, and I can't remember the name right now, but basically it's on. You can find it on XYPN. We've done some stuff with it internally here, and I've heard people talk about it. But the idea is that as a new business owner and a new person trying to develop relationships and bring in business, you want to have coffee and just have a conversation with as many people as you can. Just let people know what you're doing. So that was one of the techniques I used to start. And really right now I've been lucky. So I'm about 2.25 years into it, and had really tremendous growth in terms of all really different areas. There's not one specific thing. So I'm happy to talk about kind of the multiple areas that are working for me. But yeah, having a lot of success with different marketing tactics.
I love that. Perfect. And how about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, so I started off in high net worth taxation and public accounting, and moved to the financial services industry in 2008 when I started working with Dimensional Fund Advisors. I worked for a wealth management firm for 2 years and then started my own thing part-time while I was writing out my non-compete, and launched full-time. Yeah, I like that laugh.
Those are the
You know
best.
what I'm talking about.
Oh, man.
The mistakes.
That's another call.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But I started full time on this endeavor in September after giving birth to a little baby. So I feel like I've tried it all. I've done a lot over a long time. Naturally, I just love content and being able to write and have that relationship. Did a lot of SEO, did a lot of things. But then when I went full time, realized, you know what, this is all good and well. And I'm glad that I've got it going and it's great for long-term drip, but I need clients now. And so I really changed up my strategy at that point. I'm also a brewer consulting fan, and happy to talk about kind of those different segments as well.
Perfect. It's really cool. I'm excited to dive into all the specifics. So there's many questions that were submitted beforehand from a lot of the attendees and viewers. So we're going to work through those questions. So the first one was, what ways have you found to break through the clutter in a regulated industry through marketing? And I would love to ask Paul if you'd like to talk about that first. So working with regulations.
Break through the clutter in a regulated industry. So I have to say, being an independent kind of fee-only RIA, I might take a different view on this in that I think if you're just smart about it and you're open and you're not selling a product, so to speak, and you're giving advice, to me, I don't really feel like where I sit is heavily regulated. Now, of course, I write a blog and I write a monthly piece for Kiplinger's, and I have to be cognizant of what I'm writing. But honestly, if you're just smart about it and you're not promising anything, you're not talking about performance numbers, you're not recommending specific products or things like that, I don't really feel like it's a burden at all. And again, I may be on my own on this, but I did work at Morgan Stanley and for private wealth management, and from the broker dealer environment, yes, I can tell you, you have to have everything checked, every single thing you do. But I think here, relying on common sense has really kind of just been something that I do, and it seems to be working pretty well. It doesn't seem to be too restrictive.
Perfect. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think, depending upon what company you're coming from, like large companies, super large companies, compliance, red tape is all over the place. Even mid-size, it's not that they don't trust you, they just are afraid that the eyes are on them. At our size, there's a lot more flexibility where, as long as there's still caveats of like estimates and may and, could, and, generally, as long as you're putting in those qualifiers and you're making it very clear that like, your specific case is not talked about right here. Like, it is a lot easier to have conversations and to say things. So I really rely on a lot of that, where it's like, hey, this is very, very general. And always at the bottom, just put a disclaimer of like, this is not meant to be based on any specific situation. Like, if you have more questions, it should be scoped out into a discussion, et cetera. So I think it's actually pretty freeing, because I don't have to go through a lot of the compliance red tape that you would at larger firms. But I also know that, I'm trying to make it a more general topic, so then I don't bring up any red flags there too.
Gotcha. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what Paul and Rebecca said. I mean, it's been completely freeing. Coming from that broker-dealer world where, let's say you had something come up in the news, you literally had to go through your compliance department. They'd had to review it. And by the time they get back to you 3 weeks later, that general financial topic is no longer the mainstream. They've moved on to something else. So yeah. Being independent at this point, as long as you're sensible and you use that common sense approach, it's not as red tape as working for that broker dealer.
Gotcha. That's actually really insightful, because I didn't know that, because I've seen that self where some people are really, really scared about that. So it's good to know that there's a little bit more leniency when you got that RIA type shape. Okay, so for new firm, what were some of the top marketing activities that you guys did, and what were some of the things that perhaps you shouldn't have spent as much time on in terms of marketing? So what are things that you must be focused on and shouldn't be? And I'd like to start with Rebecca for this one.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I've got so much on my mind when it comes to this. I would say the number one thing is to figure out your personas. So I've done a lot in startups as well on the side. My husband's big into startups, and so I've done stuff with like launching startups, Series A, Series B, Series C. And the number one thing that we always come back to on the startup side is you have to know your persona. You have to know who you're talking to before you can do any marketing. So whether that is, there's lots of discussion on niches, right? So making sure that you know who you're talking about from a niche perspective, but even breaking that down further of like, imagine the person that you're talking to. Okay, maybe you do 2-3 different people that are your ideal client. But then after you do that, then you need to go find those actual people and sit down and survey them and question them of like, okay, what do you read? Like, what bothers you about this industry? Like, learn to speak their language and be able to frame everything in what they're saying, and you will go so much further. So that's kind of like, I guess, pre-marketing, or it could be marketing depending upon who you are. But I think learning to speak their language, knowing what's on their mind, where they're going, how they're thinking about it, because we can make a lot of assumptions as planners, and we certainly do in our plans and otherwise. But I think that that's really where you've got to start. And so then once you've got that, some of the things that I recommend is, start writing content where even if you don't know if you're going to start a business for another year, start writing content now, because you need to find your own voice. When you first start, you're either very technical in the way you describe things, or you're very bland because you're not quite sure of what your voice is or your personality or how much you should put into that content. And I think really allowing yourself to shine through really helps the customers who see your marketing spiel or your content or whatever it is be able to understand better who you are and get a sense of you, and that brings them to you more magnetically as well. So getting that in place is a good thing to do. I focused on content and SEO in the beginning. I ranked first page for a lot of terms I was looking for, which is great. I get a lot of eyes on my blog. I get a lot of people looking at that content, but I wasn't getting as much conversion. And so when I decided to go full-time and do my own thing, that's when I really needed to decide how much of a margin per client am I willing to forgo in marketing expense? What can I do with that? And who can I go to with that? And we mentioned Brewer Consulting earlier. I knew Pat from Dimensional Fund Advisors. I really like how sharp he is and how he thinks about things. He's very frugal and very like, let's figure it out. And then if you want to add advertising on it, then you can do that. And so it helped give me the process for my content and the way to mainstream kind of like, okay, these are the steps everybody's going to go through to make sure that that funnel can continue on an ongoing basis. So that's high level. Thank you.
Gotcha. So if I want to get, good insight, I'm going to check out Seed Safe Financial's website, browse through some of your stuff and say, oh, here's how Rebecca's doing this.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Pierre, I'd love to ask for your input, and then of course after you, Paul.
Sure. So I'll start off by, there's a book that if you're starting out that you really got to look into. It's called Traction, and it's how any startup can achieve explosive customer growth.
Yep.
And the guy who wrote it pretty much goes, I think it's Gabriel Weinberg, and the main thesis he has is that when it comes to marketing, there's 19 different avenues, and you're talking anywhere from blog, search engine marketing, SEO, content marketing, email marketing, viral marketing, business development, sales. I mean, you can go on and on. There's 19 different avenues, and your business, depending on your target niche, you'll realize and you'll find which avenue will actually best suit you. So for example, when I started my firm in 2016, I moved from Miami to Tampa, so completely new city, didn't know anyone. And so the way I started the process was kind of how Paul said with the, 1,000 cups of coffee was I joined a chamber of commerce. I went out, got my name out, met with as many people as I could, but I knew that was only one avenue, and it wasn't going to be enough to continue to, to fill that pipeline. And so after, teaming up with Brewer Consulting, one of the avenues that I went into was really through LinkedIn. And my philosophy has always been, I would much rather go out and communicate with people than the content marketing. For example, I'm terrible at writing stuff. And if you go to my website, there is nothing on there. It is just a landing page. It is just a page to make it credible. So if someone, were to search me, yes, I do have an online presence, but I have no content whatsoever. So my entire marketing is I want to get in front of you. I want to get a phone call, and then we go from there. And that's brought in about 6-7 clients a month. So until that pipeline dries out, that's gonna be my method.
Let's say the secret is just what works, right? If it's working, if you're getting 6-7 clients, hey, that's awesome.
Yep, I'll take it. So, and what I do may not, it may not work for someone else. So you've got to find out, who your market is, who are the people that you relate to the most. Look at your current book of business. Who are your top 5 clients that you enjoy working with? Who are the ones that are actually sending you referrals? And then, dive into that and what makes, what is it that creates that connection? Because you already deal with them, so you know their pain points. So more than likely, if they're referring you someone, they're going to have some similar pain points. And then that just starts to open up a door where you can start to tap into those markets as well.
Gotcha. Well, thanks. Paul.
So I think Pierre brought up an interesting point in that there's so many different things that can work for everybody. I don't think there's one answer or there's one thing. For me, I can tell you, again, I really feel like this business starts with relationships and ends with relationships. And ultimately, I do blogging and SEO and all that is an important part of my business, and it's helped bring a steady stream of interest to it. But when I first started, I think really just getting out there, talking to people, letting them know what I was doing, and not in a way where I was selling at all, more just saying, hey, this is what I do. I switched paths here. This is why I left. This is what's important to me, and just wanted to get the message out there. So I think that approach to marketing really worked for me because, number one, I was comfortable with it because at the time I wasn't very comfortable with sales. And I'll give a quick plug to Nancy Bleaky in that I took her sales course a couple of months back, and it was awesome. And it really gave me the confidence, the process and the structure to take my business to kind of a new level. And I had been successful before that, but I really got I was really able to put a process and a structure in place I didn't have before. So what really worked for me was going out there and building relationships. What I will say is that I'm in a little past 2 years now. And what I would be careful about is spending time and marketing in places that aren't yielding anything. So what I did was I went back and I really started to track to see where my clients came from, because you can have a perception that they're coming from one area and because of one area of your marketing. But in reality, when you look at the hard numbers, it really wasn't the story. And for me, I was spending a lot of time with a couple people who were centers of influence, and I wasn't getting anything out of it in terms of referrals or things like that. And I really had to make a hard decision to say, even though I liked them personally and I enjoyed the time, I had to stop and say, I need to focus my efforts on the areas that are working. So that was really difficult to do because, again, your perception is not always reality when it comes to marketing.
I like that. Perfect. Okay. So next question, I think it relates a lot to this, is where should I start in marketing? Should I use the old-fashioned method, working with like the Chamber of Commerce, the Country Club, the Rotary Club, CPAs, local attorneys? Where did you start? And I'd love to start with Paul on this one.
Yeah, so kind of continuing on what I was saying, I really just started with the folks who were closest to me and who I had relationships with. And also what Rebecca had said too, I had a pretty good idea of who I wanted to work with in terms of a niche. For me right now, I'm 40, I have 3 young kids. My niche is really mid-career professionals with young families who are either entrepreneurs or business owners. And for me, and I was also a career changer, even though I stayed in finance. It's a pretty big difference from institutional equity to financial planning. But ultimately, really spending the time up front and building the relationships. I will say one one mistake I did make, and what Rebecca had said really reminded me of this, is that I spent a lot of money on SEO to start, but I had no content. And so I had like 4 blog posts, and I spent way too much money, and I still kick myself to this day. And I, realized that it was obviously pointless now looking back at it. And now I've started to spend some money on SEO because I have 2+ years of content, and over, I probably have 60 to 70 blog posts. I have a couple white papers. I have videos. I have a lot of stuff now. So I just have the material to get traction. So I'd be careful about jumping in to SEO and things like that, because it's kind of that shiny object in the room. I know Alan Moore always says that, like it's the exciting and it's kind of the sexy, but if you don't have the content, it's really not going to help you.
So you had 4 pristine, very, very shiny articles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Pierre, would you like to chime in next, and then we'll move to Rebecca?
Sure. I think like Paul said, just get the website up. Don't focus on the SEO. That's really just I don't even do that for myself right now. I will give you the rule of 3. It's something that I started out when I was first, 6 years ago, and it's what I implemented when I came to Tampa, and that is join 3 organizations. It doesn't matter what they are. Find something that you're passionate about, ideally a chamber of commerce. And what you'll notice is within those organizations, if you stay local, you will have multiple people that will frequent those organizations, and you'll start to recognize more. And then through that, you'll create your, kind of a center of influence. Again, don't get trapped. The trap with Chamber of Commerce is always that you're going to run into other advisors. You're going to run into a bunch of lawyers and accountants, and you're always going to be expected to get referrals. It's not going to happen. The whole point is just to get your name out there. From that, you build relationships outside for people that come in. The second avenue is obviously the outbound. Everyone always thinks that, you put up a website and everyone's just all of a sudden this traffic is just going to come to your site and you're going to be loaded with questions and emails, and that just doesn't happen. So when you start out, it's all about outbound. So again, one of the best platforms out there right now is LinkedIn. Facebook is a great if you've got the money and you've got the money to spend on ads, but LinkedIn is probably the only one where you can connect with someone and immediately send a message and create a connection and start a conversation. And it's the platform that does it from a peer to peer. So it's a professional to a professional. It doesn't make it seem as personal because Facebook obviously is where most personal lives are posted. But that's eventually what you want to transition those relationships from, is they start out professional, and then, as time goes on, they become friends and they refer you more clients. So that would be the direction I would go in.
So before we move on to Rebecca, is it true that you need to learn how to golf if you don't know how, that a lot of sales like that are done on the golf course?
I've never made a sale on a golf course, so I can't relate.
Gotcha. I've had 4 people tell me that. I was wondering myself. Like, you got to learn to golf if you want to make a sale.
Yeah, my 20 handicap would probably slow the game down too much.
Perfect. How are you, Rebecca?
Yeah, sure. So first, I guess I should clarify, I've never paid for SEO. Like, I've never paid for SEO in my life. Like, all of it is natural. And I stopped writing content 6 months ago, because once you have a good base of the questions that people are coming and looking for information on, you have the long tail, like long forms that are really speaking to them. Like, I don't see a reason to keep writing content on your website because nobody cares if it was written yesterday or 2 years ago. But I would say from a marketing standpoint, so like I said before, putting together like just kind of a questionnaire and going and requesting like people in your niche of being like, hey, you're someone who I would want in the future to be a client. I really want to understand what makes you tick and what you're thinking about. And so that's how I went with it. I actually hate large groups of people. That's not my thing. I'm a little too introverted for that, but I'm great one-on-one. And so my goal was to find people through LinkedIn or friends of friends that were in the niche that I was looking to go towards, and be like, hey, I want to pick your brain. I want to buy you a coffee, and I want you to tell me everything you hate about the financial advisory industry and help me understand if what I think is going to be a good value proposition is. And so one that helps them see like, oh, this is something new and different. Like they're trying to accomplish something that, you know, maybe not everybody they've met is trying to do. And it helps you build those connections. And then it's something weird for them to mention to a friend that, hey, I met with this guy that's thinking about doing this. And I don't know, what do you think? This is what I told him. So I found that was super helpful in the beginning. I probably did 50 of those meetings, and the referrals that came off of those and just the conversations that came off of those really helped. I was bringing on about 2 clients a month. So that was great to start with while I was figuring out my voice, figuring out like what I could really provide, and then throwing money at a good program that will help you take it from there once you've kind of gotten your initial footing is really beneficial, because now I'm bringing on 7 to 10 clients a month.
So you said 50? You did 50 interviews like that?
I did, yeah. I have a Google form that I'd sit down with them and ask them different questions and kind of write out the answers, so then I could see trends as well too. Yeah, super nerdy. But I think it made all the difference. People want to know that you care, right? Like if you just say like, hey, this is what I'm doing, everyone's like, oh God, another financial advisor. And it's like, no, this is why I want to do it different. And I want to know what you hate, because I don't want to do that. Like I left big firms for a reason. I think that really, really jives with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really love that interview idea. Like, heck, figure out what their pain point is and then make the solution. That's better than having a solution and finding the people. I love that. Speaking of that, we just had a question. You mentioned LinkedIn. We just had a question that was asked, I think relates to that. It said, what are you doing on LinkedIn that works? We have had no success.
Well, I guess it's a question of if they're talking about paid LinkedIn versus not, and what their niche is, right? Because I think Pierre said, you know, professional to professional. So if you're working with teachers or military, they're probably not on LinkedIn very often. You know, like you have to know who your contingency is. Small business owners are a lot more likely to be on LinkedIn, and it's really about trying to connect with them and start a conversation. So piquing their interest through a question, or just letting them know that you're looking at them. So if they do have something on their mind or come up, then they can reach out to you and you can start that conversation. But Pierre, how are you kind of thinking about it as well?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is what you just mentioned is your audience, right? So the people that I target on LinkedIn, I know are on LinkedIn all day because that's their job. So it makes it a lot easier. I know that they're going to respond to my messages if I connect with them. It's going to be a lot easier to have that interaction. If you're trying to find a doctor, you know, most physicians are either at the doctor's office, they're dealing with patients at the ER. They're not going to be on LinkedIn, but you'll find them on Facebook. So you got to figure out where your target clients are, where your niche is, and then figure out what platform they use. And that's going to be, you know, again, that's how you align your marketing.
I like that. Paul, you have any comments on that? Use LinkedIn much for marketing?
No, I have used it, and I really just use it as another way to distribute content. But I do think that, you know, getting involved and getting questions and joining groups and kind of just, again, being present on it is really the way that I haven't personally put the effort toward it, but I've heard that's what usually works, is when you're, again, commenting, involved in conversations in groups. You have to be active to be able to, you know, hope to start building relationships from it or gaining interest.
Yeah, it's all about engagement.
Yeah, people like real people. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so next question that we've got. If any of you collect emails for an email list or a newsletter, what are some of the ways that you collect them? I've heard a lot of people use freemiums for this approach. Any other suggestions for collecting emails? And whoever wants to jump at it.
Keep me out of it because I don't do any of that.
Oh.
Perfect.
I do lead pages. They're very specific. They're freemiums. So it's what are the 3 biggest mistakes that Amazonians make with RSUs, or the family financial playbook of like how to introduce money to your kids. Like, so I do a lot of stuff that's very targeted to specific people or personas, like I talked about before. Besides freemium, there's always just like, you know, inserting it into every email that you send out at the bottom, where it's like, want to learn more? Here you go. Like I'm not great with my newsletters. I've got like a year content drip put in place now, but I'm not I don't know. I don't feel like my newsletter really does a lot of the work. Like I said, I like one-on-one conversations. And so I'm pretty bad at big groups or big mailing lists.
Perfect. Paul, do you use those much, or what's your approach take on it?
So I have on my website just a link to sign up for my blog. And I also do have one white paper that I've tried that I've had limited success in terms of it's probably been out there, maybe 5 or 6 months, and maybe I've got 60 or 70 emails from it, but I think I've had one conversion out of it. So it's not really been, I want to say a home run, but I'm going to try to continue to do that a little bit more in the future.
My lead pages are at 35% convert. So whoever sees it and knows what content is there, they are converting at a pretty high rate. But that's also because, again, it's very specific knowledge that you can't really find a lot elsewhere. I would say like I do an upsell page to an immediate consult, and that probably only gets like 5% conversion off of the people that see that lead page. Really for me, when I do lead pages and I do a freemium piece of content, I do like a 6-part series through MailChimp of trying to engage them to get a meeting, because that's the whole point of a freemium or getting them on my newsletter in my mind, is that I want to engage them in a conversation. So again, engagement is like the key word of the day, right? E for engagement. And so I send them a 6 series that's like, hey, by the way, here's how to minimize the tax effects of RSUs, or hey, you didn't know this, and insert videos, and kind of give them this drip over 6 emails that they can either decide like, oh yeah, this is a pain point enough, I want to get on a call, or they just kind of go, it wasn't really enough for me to do anything right now. And then I stop emailing them. So I don't want to like harass them all day long, but then I have their email address. So if I want to do a lookalike audience later or do something on Facebook, I have their email address and I can make that happen.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's good that you get a certain percent, like, right? You're naturally, if you're casting a marketing net, you don't want all of those people that you're catching, because not all of them are ideal. Yeah. Some of them don't want what you're offering. So be okay with rejection, everyone. Okay, this one's an interesting question, and it might be a light, quick one. Have any of you done projections for your sales before doing marketing? If so, what did you project? Were you below, above? Should you be conservative with that? Is it important to have projections, etc.? And I'd love to start with whoever wants to talk about that, if you guys use that. I had a feeling there might not.
Sure.
Does anyone use project?
I'll jump on it.
Okay.
I don't really project sales. I think that's kind of tough, but I do set goals for myself where, my ideal goal is to have 5 clients come in on a monthly basis. So, I measure based on that.
Gotcha. Cool. Perfect. Okay. Anyone else want to chime in on that? If not, move on to the next one.
Yeah, real quick. So I believe in projections, but I also believe in managing expectations with metrics. So I keep pretty concrete metrics around how things are going, and so that I know how many eyes I need on something, or how many connections I need in order to get to a proposal, in order to get to a meeting or whatnot, and to get to a client eventually, right? So I think that part, when we're talking about projections, is really important. So knowing how many people you need to touch that month in order to get whatever you're trying to get in clients. So for me, when I first started out, it was like, okay, great. It looks like based off benchmarking, I'm lucky if I get 1, and then it got to like, okay, well, I'll be lucky if I got 2. And now at this point, I'm beating my expectations by a lot more than I thought. So now I'm just kind of going with the flow and saying, you know what, if I can touch 60 families this year, then fantastic. And I'm going to leave it there for now.
I like that. Thanks. It's always good to know. Knowing your numbers, like 10-3-1 and other approaches. I like that. Have any of you ever abandoned a particular social media, whether it's a platform or a mailing list? And why did you leave that platform? When should you leave a platform? I'd love to start with Paul and then move on to Rebecca and then Pierre, if you guys have comments.
Sure. So I think whenever you're on a specific social media platform, you have to understand why you're on it. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds kind of silly. Obviously, you're on it to get your word out and develop relationships. But I mean, for me, the way I think about it, so Twitter is a medium for me to connect with folks in the industry. And I have had very little success in terms of drumming up business from it, but I've had a ton of success of making industry contacts, and whether that's reporters, whether that's other large RIAs in the business, or again, just people in the industry. That's been really helpful for me as I've grown. So that's kind of one specific role that Twitter plays for me. And I've kind of abandoned the marketing aspect to grow business off of Twitter. It serves a different purpose for me. But for LinkedIn and Facebook, yes, I use those for marketing. I don't want to say I abandoned it, but I guess I thought about Instagram for a little bit, but it just doesn't seem to fit with what I'm trying to do. I just can't figure out a way. So I only have so much time in the day, and so, you have to focus on some of the things that are working. So for me, it's really only those three platforms.
Gotcha, I love it. Rebecca.
Yeah, sure. So I too abandoned Twitter quickly. I thought it was funny when you started with, you can find them on Twitter at blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, when's the last time I posted on there? Yeah, so agreed. It's great for industry contacts. It's not so great. And I do tech. Tech is my niche, and it's still not great. I think there's just a lot of noise on Twitter. Honestly, it's kind of hard. I found Facebook is really great. And the sad thing is I'm not using my Facebook company profile. Maybe I should be. I've been doing it a lot more on my personal Facebook, where I have a lot of connections that people that I've met, I've Facebooked them or whatever, because it's like, oh, let me share a baby picture with you. Or yeah, I went there, I hiked there, I'm going to send you whatever, and I'm going to connect with you on Facebook. And so I've kind of brought people in as my family, so to say, on Facebook, since you can kind of sort it by acquaintances versus friends versus whatnot. And so whenever I have successes, like I saved my Bitcoin client $10,000 of switching them from FIFO to, the specific tax method, and I put that out on there, like I get lots of likes and I have conversations off of that. And so I find that reminding people of the successes I'm having with clients is making them go, oh yeah, I need to talk to you. And so I end up getting a lot of contact through that. And then LinkedIn, of course, I'm connecting with people. I haven't really launched into doing what I've been doing on Facebook yet. I'm trying to understand if it would work the same way, but I certainly plan on utilizing LinkedIn better in the future.
Can I just say, I absolutely love the idea of sharing your wins, because you're showing the value you gave someone. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. Like, I'm taking my own notes onto the side. I'm like, share wins on Facebook. Pierre, what do you have?
Yeah. So I created a Twitter. I've got the Facebook and the LinkedIn profile. And originally I created all those just to create those backlinks to the website, right? The SEO play. And I cringed when you gave them my Twitter, because just like Rebecca, I don't use it at all. It's just a nice, piece that's on there. The only platform that I use consistently and pretty much on a daily basis is going to be LinkedIn. That's where everything I've done is built out of. Facebook is really just a matter of creating that, making the relationship more personal. So when they become a client, then I will connect with them. And then, that brings them into my life, and they get access to, obviously my pictures and a picture of my kids here and there, what I've been doing. That's really what Facebook is for me.
Cool. Love it. Okay. This brings me to another interesting question about this, because I just talked about we're spending only so much time in a day, like to do all the things that we're doing. Have you ever outsourced your marketing or portions of it? And what sort of budget did you use for that? Was there a budget friendly? Did you see more expensive, cheaper options? Have you ever outsourced? So if any of you have outsourced bits, I'd love to hear from you. I'm not going to pressure everyone to comment, because you may not have done it.
Perry, you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You can go, Rebecca.
Yeah, so paying for marketing is very painful to me, because it's like, oh my God, I'm going to throw money out there and hopefully 1% of people respond. And oh my God, what is this even going to look like? So from my perspective, I had to decide before I even engaged with anyone, how much of each client was I willing to forgo, whether it was the initial fee or an ongoing thing. What percentage of that margin was I going to allow to go to marketing? And so I decided up to 20% of my initial fee with clients, I was willing to have go to marketing, just because of the fact that it was like, okay, I really need revenue now. I need to find something that's proven now. I also was very beware of those that were like, oh yes, like I have a monthly fee, plus you'll have to do Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's just a money suck in my mind. If if you haven't proven it out through having it organically share, in my mind, it's pretty hard to go from like nothing to paying for stuff and finding out all of the mistakes you make along the way while you're already shelling out tons of money. So when I was looking at hiring outside help in marketing, it was really around those two things of like, how much margin am I going to have to give up? What are you telling me you can guarantee me? And what additional things that I have to pay that would still be variable with every single client that I try to bring on? So those like ad costs and stuff. So that's how I ended up with Brewer Consulting, was the fact that it was like, okay, based off of what you're telling me I can do, then this margin is going to happen or less than that. So I'm ready to go forward with that. And again, like I said, I knew Pat, so it really made that conversation a lot easier. I talked to people that were like, oh yeah, SEO, I'll optimize your website and it'll be, you know, X dollars. And it's like, okay, well, what does that get me? And they're like, well, you can hope for blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it's really based on your content and blah, blah. And I was like, I need more structure than that. And so that really is what sold me on Brewers, getting that structure in place.
I like that. I have to look into Brewer Consulting. Maybe we can probably drop a link to that.
Yeah.
Pierre, what do you got?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Rebecca said, I agree with everything. The biggest thing when it comes to marketing and outsourcing is that, you know, when you hire an outside source, you've really got to find out, you've got to make sure that the message is going to be personalized to what you're targeting. And so that was one of the main reasons why I partnered up with Brewer, was just the fact that I knew the target that I wanted. And they not only helped me get the message, they helped me structure the message correctly, then they helped me structure the email sequence. And so it was what I wanted to do. They showed me how to do it, and now I'm getting the results from it. So if you're going to partner with someone outside, you've just got to make sure that it aligns with what you're doing.
I like that. Paul, do you have any insights on that?
No, I don't. I feel left out that I don't partner with Brewer, but I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, there's a variety of people can use, and so I'm actually kind of intrigued myself, seeing that we're talking about that. Oh, yeah. And just a brief comment. I know I don't like to comment much about myself or XYPN, but we ourselves have had some outsourcing bits that have been expensive with little to no results. And we've had some that like the New York Times article that perhaps many of you have seen out, where we had hundreds of hits to the Find an Advisor profile. We had members getting 5-6 hits a day for a week or two, you know, from their Find because of that article. So some things are free and give you so much exposure. Some things you spend a ton of money on and are useless. So it's hard to figure that out, but figuring out a strategy is important.
So can I add something to that?
Yeah.
That was kind of my metric, was like, okay, I'm paying XYPN a monthly fee to do all my technology to help me with compliance, and I'm getting like 2 referrals from them a month. I was like, who's going to beat this? So I certainly agree. Like it's definitely helpful to have that free side of things.
Yeah. Just one more thing, you know, anyone that's that y'all listening in, check out the Find an Advisor profiles in XYPN. I think those are really, really valuable in seeing how people explain themselves. Like you might look into it and be like, oh, I love the way this person says this and this about themselves. I could put that on my own website. Or when I join the network, oh, I want to word it this way. And you'll see some that's like some bit and you're like, you don't quite explain it well enough. I want to like just tell you, add a little bit more, explain yourself, because you'll get people that way. So just a thought from me. Perfect. I also want to chime in on that.
Well, I'm just thinking now I need you to look at mine and make sure that mine is fully explained.
Hey, maybe I should. I could do that. Send me an email afterwards.
Fix mine too, because I think that week where, like you mentioned, the New York Times, I picked up 2 clients from it. So I definitely got the movement. So.
Yeah, it's valuable, right? And also knowing the niches, like who did that article hit, right? That leads me to the next question that I have from this list is, what was a big marketing fail in terms of you spent money on something that was useless or didn't provide as much results? And what was an example of like a win where perhaps you didn't spend much money or something that seemed non-useful turned out to be super huge and got you a bunch of clients? Any big wins and fails? I'd love to start with Pierre and then move to Rebecca, then to Paul.
Man, you put me on the spot. I can't think of any big fails off the top of my mind. I know that I had when I joined Brewer, I was definitely hesitant up front because, you know, one of the biggest things is when it comes to marketing, everyone always promises that silver bullet, and it doesn't exist. And it's not one thing that's going to make or break for you. And for everyone, it's going to have a different result. So that was probably my biggest hesitation before I joined. So in the end, it's been great. But I will say that.
Gotcha. I like it. Rebecca.
Yeah, so at a prior wealth management firm that I worked for, I felt like one of our big fails was paying for ads where it wasn't even organic content that was shareable just in and of itself, right? Like if you haven't tested it out for free first and to see if people even want to share it when you're not promoting it or anything, chances are it's not going to go very far with ad dollars. And so I feel like it's very easy to go down the route of being like, okay, if it just gets in front of enough people, well, it's got to still be compelling enough. Like you can pay all day long. Like people love for you to pay all day long, but it has to be compelling. And so I think a big mistake is just jumping from the not trying anything to bringing in paid way too early before you even have that compelling conversation ready and that compelling content. But once you do, then I believe that, you know, ads can certainly magnify that and make it even better. And then from the brewer side of things, I guess one of the things I forgot to mention is that everything new that you try makes you uncomfortable, and you got to know how much time you can put into it too, right? So for me, joining Brewer, his personality is a little bit different from mine. And so it was like, God, can I even do this? Like, we're so different. And so I just kind of had to realize with myself, like, no, I'm just too comfortable with the way I've been doing things. And I need to be able to be open to those ideas. And then the other thing is just making sure you have the time to commit to really making it effective. Because again, like I said, you can pay somebody all day long and they love that, but you want to make sure that you can make that an effective relationship. And so ask in the beginning, like, how many hours is it going to take for this? And what does this commitment look like? And start scheduling it on your calendar. Because I think that's another big fail, is where you do join something where it's proven metrics and, you know, everybody says it's a win for them, but it's probably only a win because they dedicated their time to it and they dedicated their mindset to it. So I think that that's another thing that you don't want to fail at, is forgetting that you've got to be part of that.
Yeah, I love that. And just to note, you're talking about the social selling, like moving individual, how you communicate with different people. Like you said, Brewer, you know, he had a different mindset than you did, different way of approaching people. There was an article that we had recently from one of the XYPN teammates about social selling and different ways of aligning with different ways of doing it. We might drop a link to that in the chat, but that's a really good article to read about different ways, and that it's okay to use your personality type in selling. You don't have to change to be like, you know, Mr. Brewer. You don't have to change to be like the way that Miss Connor does. You don't have to change to do it anyway. You use your skills. Paul, you have any comments on that?
No, I just just quick things. I had said before, the SEO was a huge fail because I did it when I had 4 blog posts, and I was kind of sold a little bit of a bag of, you know what, because again, it was the shiny object. All the numbers looked incredible, and they were too good to be true. So what I will say, just kind of, again, piggybacking off of Rebecca, you know, whatever you do, you got to be all in, because if you kind of do bits and pieces, or you're not really sold, and like she had said with Patrick Brewer taking a different approach, you need to be okay with that. You need to realize that just because it's different, it doesn't appeal to you. That doesn't really matter, because you're not trying to sell to yourself or market to yourself. You're marketing to a different niche, and that might appeal to that person, or that, you know, whoever you're trying to go after. So, and then also, by the way, the reason why you're trying to be uncomfortable is because maybe what you're doing isn't working, you know, the way you want it. So that's okay, but you got to commit to doing it, and you know, really be all in whatever you decide to go with.
I like that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you know, I just thought of a fail when I started out. One of the things that I did was those the social, you know, the automation for the social, where you automate your post to, you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all those platforms. But all I was doing was, I didn't have original content. So on a daily basis, you know, I'd have one thing fire off on Twitter, one thing on Facebook, one thing on LinkedIn. It was just articles that I liked, and you know, I'd write a little comment. Those don't go anywhere. And in fact, I probably wasted more time setting that up than realizing, you know, you're better off going out and hunting for it than you are just, you know, trying to generate that inbound through those methods.
I like that. Thank you. Okay, our next question. Have you found that there's a sweet spot to how frequently you post on different social media platforms? Have you tested that, found anything good for how frequently you're hitting people? And I'd love to start with Rebecca, then move to Paul, then Pierre.
Well, when I was doing it, 2 times a week seemed to be really good. And when I have wins, and that's when I post. So generally, that probably ends up being twice a week too, now that I think about it.
Yes. Love seeing the wins, and I love the fails. I love celebrating failures and successes, because failures are learning to succeed, and succeeds are successes too. Perfect. Paul.
Sure. So I think posting can mean a lot of different things, right? It can be original content. It can be repurposing old content. It can be commenting on articles. I know with Pierre, I kind of agree with that. I've had very limited success. Every once in a while, I'll see a really good article that I think people should read, and backs up some of the stuff I talk about, and I'll send that out. But I produce my own original content every 2 weeks. I try to recycle old blog posts every week, and then I'm trying to maybe comment here and there a couple times a week. So I think you do want to be cognizant. You don't want to be that guy or that girl and be annoying and be on there every day or 3 times a day. I just think there's too much noise out there. People don't, what you may be saying may be incredible, but if people start seeing your ads pop up every 5 minutes, you're going to get just deleted, and they're not going to want to even listen. So I think you got to be careful of that.
Well, and on the flip side of that too, right? The reason why they started scroll screens for all of those social media platforms is because then it sucks you in and you never leave, right? So when you're posting content, you can also end up with the problem of staying on too long and going down a rat hole that isn't helpful for your business whatsoever. So don't get sucked in on that side too.
Set a timer. Perfect. Pierre, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I transitioned from once a day to 2, max 2 a week. And that's about it.
Perfect. Okay, so we're getting down to the last little bit. There's a couple of questions I wanted to ensure got asked. One of them is, how much time do you spend each week on marketing? Does it vary from week to week, or do you have a set, here's how much time I'm spending on this? And I'd love to start with Pierre and then move to Paul, then Rebecca.
So to me, it's simple. If you work a 60-hour week, if you're not in front of a client, then you're marketing. So, and that'll, going back to that book that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Gabriel goes into that, and he says that you should split 50% of your time should be marketing, 50% of the time should be focused on the business. While I'm building the business, obviously when I was starting out, I was probably doing 90% marketing, 10% client. Now as time has gone on and I've acquired more clients, the marketing starts to diminish a bit, but I'm probably about 60 to 65% marketing right now.
Yeah, it's funny, Pierre, I'm probably the exact same. And when I started out, I was probably 95%. And I think I would still be 95% if I didn't have, my client base hasn't grown. And I'm trying to figure out, as my firm grows, where do I really like spending my time? I like being out in front of people and clients and networking and telling my story and trying to add value in different ways. But yeah, probably about 65 or 70%. And I define marketing pretty broadly. So it could be, having up a cup of coffee. It could be speaking at a luncheon. It could be on social media, sending something out. It could be writing a blog. It could be connecting to people who I think would be just, interesting people for each other to learn from or whatever. But it's pretty broad, but probably about 70%. And then the other 30% is covering clients.
Well, I do not plan on working a 60-hour work week. I will plan on maintaining my 30-hour work week through leverage. But for me, it's really 2 days a week. I go and I meet with a lot of prospects. I meet with people that just have questions that have pinged me. And I'm like, hey, let's just get together for coffee or a virtual coffee or however it is. So 2 days a week are dedicated to that. And then I'd probably say I spend maybe an hour engaging with new people, outreach a week. And then when it comes to content or ideas of more lead pages and stuff like that, usually that happens at the worst times when like my kiddo is having a huge blowout or something like that. And so I'm mentally taking notes at all times and just kind of thinking about those things. And so then once I feel like I have something of substance, I'll block off 2 hours and rip it out as soon as I can. So that's more ad hoc.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So next question that was asked, someone asked about with joining XY Planning Network, did you get any sort of help with marketing, or was there team study groups, etc., that helped with getting marketing up and running? And we'll start with Paul, move to Pierre, and then to Rebecca.
Yeah, so I think just generally, obviously, the network and having other people who you can call up, and I'm definitely going to call Pierre and Rebecca after this and ask them about Brewer and see what they like, what's working and what's not, because it's interesting. I think that having those connections is priceless, especially when you're starting out, because you don't want to try to recreate the wheel, and there's people who have done it and been successful, and you can really find that out pretty quickly. There is also Carolyn, and I'm blanking on her last
Carolyn
name.
McRae?
Yep. So Carolyn, I had done kind of a one-on-one consulting with her and listened to a lot of her videos and things like that. But yeah, there's definitely support. I wouldn't say it's not like you're getting a dedicated person, but you have somebody there if you want to bounce questions off of, and it was definitely very helpful.
Perfect. And just as a note, before moving into Pierre, I'm pretty sure, and one of my teammates can correct me in chat if I'm wrong, but XYPN members, there's an XYPN Academy page where there's ability to get some of like the old XY Plan Network conferences where you can go and watch old videos from that. But also there is like little charts, or like wow, what's it called? Little like mini courses about marketing that Carolyn's helped make. So there's access and resources to help with that I'm aware of and have seen. So perfect. Pierre.
Yeah. So if you're looking to start your firm, joining XYPN is going to be the route to go, to be able to leverage, just like you said, those resources, not just from the marketing side, but the tech, the compliance, and then your biggest asset is just going to be the other advisors within the network. It's a no-brainer. So I'm glad I found it. I'm glad I used it. I learned quite a bit from the marketing resources that you mentioned. But as far as implementation, that's when I outsourced that to someone else.
That's awesome. Rebecca.
Yeah, so my marketing journey really started out with XYPN at the last conference last year, where I don't remember if they're 30-minute sessions or whatnot, but you kind of had the coach's corner where you could come ask questions and kind of get a feeling for stuff. And marketing to me is kind of like financial advice. You can find every opinion out there. You can find data that supports every type and method. Like Pierre said, there are 17 different ways you can come at it. So I really was like, I just want to sit down with someone and understand. And so it really helped me, just that cute little funnel graphic that you guys have, and like walking through that, and like, here's some basic things that you can do. It helped at least put some framework around it in my mind. And I super appreciated that. And it was great because I had my baby with me and she took a picture of us and I was like, oh, you're marketing right now because you're sending it to everybody else. So I really found that valuable. I wish that I could do it again at the next live conference. Like, I really think that the conference, and like you said, like the Academy has old conference material on there. I think the conference was really helpful for me to just get a sense of, what is the beat of the pulse right now? Like, what are people thinking about? Talking to other advisors and figuring out what they're doing, to at least kind of start putting something together, because you can keep it in your head, but until you actually try something, right? Like, you're not moving forward, because like you said, failures can be successes and successes are successes. So I think that really helped me start off and to get that right. And I'm just really thankful for XYPN to help me in that area. And then once I was ready to ramp up and I knew my voice and my content, that's when, Brewer and outsourcing really make a lot more sense.
I love that. And just to note, we dropped the link in the chat to the Coach's Corner. That's actually happening again this year. We're planning on keeping that every single year because it was so useful last year. Everyone was just, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. There's ones on marketing, branding, compliance. There's all sorts of different ones. So you can check that out in the link there. We are running out of time, so I'll hand just a quick minute teach you to give a little bit, how do people connect with you? Where can they find you? If they want to call you and say, hey, tell me more about your experience or whatnot, how do people get a hold of you? And then I'll end us from there. So we'll start with Rebecca, then go to Paul, then Pierre.
Yeah, sure. You can check out my website, but really in essence, you can just email me. Like that's probably the best way to connect with me. So it's RJ Conner, CONNER at seedsafefinancial.com. Certainly happy to help others out because I think a lot of us here at XYPN, we've gotten a ton of help from others that were, more senior to us as part of the network. And it's all about raising each other up because there's an abundance of clients and it's just figuring out how we can all help them.
Love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my email, I'm happy to talk to anybody or help them out. I'm a big believer in paying it forward. I've had so many people who've helped me along my journey and continue to help me and been mentors and people who I can just call up and bounce things off of. And I think forget about, any textbook or class or this or that or anything. The most important thing for me, what XYPN has been is the relationships I developed through it and having those people who I can trust and like you had said, Rebecca, everybody can help everybody and it's a win-win. There's so much opportunity. But my email is just Paul at Lake Road Advisors spelled with an O.com. So happy if anybody wants to chat, send me an email and set something up.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much on there every day. So you can connect with me. I'll message right back. And then if you want to send me an email, it's just P and my last name, JOUVE at insurerwealth.com. And just like Paul said, I'm always looking to learn. So connecting with people and building those relationships, I've got an open ear. I'm ready.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you all so much for your time. I really, really appreciate you, Rebecca and Paul and Pierre, so much for your time here. I just want to mention our next call that we're having. We do one of these about once every month. Our next one, which I believe is, is June 6th, is all about adopting the monthly retainer model and using it. So we all know the monthly retainer model is a great way for advisors to structure their business to profitably as well as effectively work with younger clients without having to deal with AUM or selling specific products. So we're going to have several XYPN members on there to talk about that, how it enables them to work with X and Y clients. So we'll drop a link to that in the chat so you guys can register for that. You'll also see that in the follow-up email information about that. I'd love to prod you all to check out the member benefits directory. It's a thing we compiled with 70 pages of just relationships we have with companies, software companies, marketing firms, etc. that can help you guys get on your feet quicker as you're starting your firms. And also, jump on a call with Stacy. If you're getting ready to move and you're excited, jump on a call with Stacy and her team. Again, it's xyplannerwork.com/schedule. You can schedule a 30-minute call with the marketing team to talk about getting started with starting your firm. And also, when you are joining the network, because let me tell you, this is the exciting place to be at. You please make sure that you mention Paul and Rebecca and Pierre in that paperwork, just so we can know that these calls are helpful. That's how we track the use of these calls, right? Are we inspiring people to action? How are they inspiring them? So put down Paul, put down Rebecca, put down Pierre as those that inspired you to act and get involved and helped you be aware. And please, as well, use their contact information. So thank you all for your time. I know I went a little bit over that hour that I promised. It was fantastic to have you all, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.